that
Could you
one.
shut that camera off, please?
That replaces
We're
that
down to
one.
sections, don't we?
All right.
Up there.
There's a couple.
Oh, they're new?
You have a couple resolutions.
Oh, Dave's got a couple resolutions? Sign it?
It's a lot. It's a lot. There's
Yeah,
one more over there. Hoarding. See?
He's hoarding the resolutions.
yeah. You got them all? 1,000 votes? Don't do them. Don't read them, just.
Thanks. Well, welcome everybody. It's great to see a good turnout on a August. Is it raining? I didn't even look outside. Nobody's playing golf, so they all came to council, which is really good. Actually, we have a really exciting council meeting today. There's a lot of good positive stuff. So I'm sorry I'm a little late, but we'll get you out of here in not too bad a time. So as we get going, minutes for the previous meeting, July 16th. Council minutes. Moved by Deputy Mayor Fisk, second by Councillor Caldwell, that the minutes of the July 16th, 2013 council meeting be approved as presented. All in favor? Carried. Additional items? Anybody got additional items?
Yes, I do.
Ron? And Lou? Dave? Gary? Okay.
Oh, sorry, nothing for me. Terry, you can speak on.
Are you doing Rex? Bill? Okay, if anybody has one later on, don't worry about jumping in, especially you, Rick. There's no public meeting and delegations. Rob, did you want to come up? Rob Unsworth, did I say that right? And Karen. And it was great to see that, and I think you'll talk about it a bit more, Rob, but I know a few of the councillors were able to make it up, and a great job on what you did up in Clifford, so I'll let you talk about it.
Is that mic on?
I hope not.
Oh, did we tell you you're on TV too? Like I just to put
That's
extra
on.
pressure on you.
Pull a
Just
little
not
closer.
I don't need to be close for me. Mayor George Bridge, Deputy Mayor Terry Fisk, Town of Mental Counselors. My name is Rob Unsworth and I'm here today.
Sorry, take your time, Rob.
On behalf of the Mark Striker family and those people who organized the benefit for their family. There are a lot of thank yous we feel need to be said, so if you can bear with me, I will try to get through them all without crying. Nerves and feelings have a way all of their own. We would like to thank the first responders, fire and EMS, for an excellent professional job at the accident scene. We would like to thank the town for supporting their services. When you look at the scope of the accident, the fact that no one died, you can only thank God for that. But from there, God needs help here on earth, and that's what the first responders provided. We would like to thank the town of Minto for their contribution for the arena in Clifford for the benefit. I would also like to thank those from council who were in attendance, including Mayor Bridge, Deputy Mayor Fisk, Councillor Ron Faulkner, and Mary Lou Caldwell, all of whom I had an opportunity to speak to that night. I would like to thank the town of Minto staff, from the first person I talked to who got me in touch with Mayor Bridge, Matt Lubers, and in particular, the arena staff, Al Carr, and Mike Maynard, in our opinion, went well and above and beyond what anyone could have expected. Their time, effort, and coordination were greatly appreciated. There was never an ask that was refused, and their expertise in setting up the arena was invaluable. It was mentioned, however, that when a councillor buys a pie, it is nice if they share it with the arena staff.
That's right. Or even with other councillors. Did you buy it?
I didn't buy the pie, my husband did.
The benefit was a tremendous success. We fed over 500 people, and due to time, we did not get all the items donated auctioned off. It was said to me that night that we get to close the book on this chapter, and I guess we closed the chapter, but not the book. With all the items not having been auctioned, it looks like we'll have to open a new chapter with another auction at some time. At the end of the benefit, I was never so tired, so emotionally drained, and never so proud of where I live. The town of Minto made that possible, so a great big thank you to all those who helped make it possible. Sincerely, town of Minto resident Rob Unsworth for the Mark Stryker family.
Thanks,
Good
Rob.
job.
And I think you just showed it, Rob, you had a lot of emotion into the event, and that's what drives something like that. And we really thank you for your participation, Karen, and helping this happen, so.
It wasn't in my letter, but I will tell you that we made over $10,000 that night.
Excellent.
Wow.
Very good.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Awesome job.
Thank
Thanks.
you very much. And we've got Maitland Valley with us today, and the whole, oh, sorry. Moved by Councilor Caldwell, second by Councilor Turton, the Town of Minto Council convenes into the Committee of the Whole. Sorry, we get away from ourselves. All in favor of that? One more mistake, we're gone.
It's only one, isn't it?
That's the first one. It's not too bad, you get 3. Hi, guys. Again, do you want to just introduce Phil and
Sure.
we,
Phil Muir, General Manager, Secretary Treasurer at Maitland Valley, and this is Jeff King, our Stewardship Services Coordinator. And of course, you know this gentleman.
yes,
on
we
our
see
left.
Mark kind of
Gentlemen,
periodically.
use that term lightly.
I'm not here as your planner.
No, he's a county volunteer. Not today, he isn't, no.
Here as your great legacy person.
That's right.
So, Mayor Bridge and members of council, we've got a bit of a tag team presentation this afternoon. And since the report's been circulated, I'm just going to touch on the highlights so that we have more time for questions and some discussion. So basically, the subject of this afternoon's presentation is whether Minto is interested in developing a community-led soil and water conservation project, whether it's called Trees for Minto or we go beyond that, is up for discussion. As I think all of you know, the Trees for Mapleton project next door to you has been very successful, and there's some reasons it's been successful, which I will touch on. But in 2012, the Trees for Mapleton wanted to try and, along with the Grand and the other conservation authorities, wanted to see this program expanded throughout Wellington County. So through the Grand River Conservation Foundation, they were able to get a Trillium grant to help expand it, and one of the municipalities they wanted to see it expanded into was Minto. So while the application is aimed at the Conestoga watershed, they are willing to provide a bit of support if you're interested in getting a project going in Minto. So the reasons why Mapleton has been successful for the past 10 years, I've outlined them there, and it really needs to be a community-led project. And we really need to find some local champions, some leaders in the community. Would need to get a local committee set up like they do in Mapleton. Have the right technical support and financial support to support that committee. And above all, one of the reasons why Mapleton's been successful is been very proactive in terms of going out into the community to encourage people to get involved. So those are the elements that we see that we would need to develop here in Minto if a project was going to be successful. We would like to strongly encourage that you go beyond what Mapleton is doing and go beyond tree planting and look at incorporating a rural stormwater management element into it to help landowners deal with the types of runoff events we're seeing with our rapidly changing climate, and to look at more projects like we're doing down at the Scott Farm and Garvey Glen to sort of try and control that runoff. So it's trees plus grass waterways, berms, wetlands, that type of thing is what we would recommend. And I'll maybe now turn it over to Mark to talk about the types of support that's available from the county.
Great, thanks, Phil. I think you all know about many of the supports we've got, but We're really quite fortunate in this county. We've got the Rural Water Quality Program and the Green Legacy Program. There's a fair amount of funds available that we can use towards tree planting from the Rural Water Quality Program. And of course, with the Green Legacy Program, we've got a ready supply of inexpensive trees, all kinds of different species. So, you know, we're probably as lucky as anybody in Ontario in terms of tree planting. So all that we really need in this case is some local, a local spin to it and how Minto maybe wants to get involved. And we have the resources out there to get at some of that money and help pay for some of the projects. So that's what we're trying to do, basically, see if we can spread trees from Mapleton into Minto. And we're going to be out talking with Wellington North as well this fall. So, and we're available to assist, with some of the planning and stuff. So I think that's really what we're here for. I think Jeff says a few words to.
Okay, thanks very much. Mine is sort of on the technical side of what we can provide through the Conservation Authority, and Phil's touched base on a lot of the projects. We're having great success with Scott project that goes back to 2005 and the big Garvey Glen one. So we're seeing good results with that, with the rural stormwater management, these kind of rain events we're seeing and droughts. So these are the kind of approaches that are really needed. Phil talked about, tree planting and how successful that's been, and we're really trying to push the other approach. And those projects have been successful with the approach that Phil mentioned there, where we've had a champion that's got it moving for us, and we have committees and that help push it ahead, and the Conservation Authority is there to try and help with some of the technical expertise and that we can provide. But our biggest challenge right now is we're reviewing the whole Conservation Authority, and our staff time is very limited right now, and we do have these bigger demonstration projects. So we're looking at what the need is out there for these type of projects, and where we need to staff up in that too. So it's good timing for us because we're undertaking that review right now, and I'm really hoping that the project moves ahead, and we'd be keen to be involved in that.
And I talked to the Saugeen as well, and they're interested in helping as well. So
Okay.
they can help cover the north part of
The
Minto.
north part, right?
Yeah. And the Trees for Farm project has advised us that they'd be willing to put $2,000 towards startup costs for any committee work and outreach work that you want to do as well. So I think we have a good foundation if we can develop that community support to move it forward. So if council is interested in trying to develop a project in Minto, I guess it's up to you to decide how you'd like to start that process, but we'd certainly be there willing to help. So turn it over to any questions.
Yes, I was going to say, Councillor Faulkner.
Yes, I am a real champion of tree planting and that. What time commitments would it be for a committee out of Minto to not only start, spearhead, and develop this program? And how many people?
Well, I think on the Mapleton project, there's 6 or 8 members of that, plus some agency support staff. I think they meet 3 or 4 times a year.
Was that all?
Yeah, it's really, the difference they have in Mapleton is they have a dedicated staff person. That they can hand things off to, so it's a little different situation that way. I think it's going to be up to the committee as to how much they want to put into it. So, and that's something the committee would have to wrestle with. But Mapleton, I think we meet 3 or 4 times a year.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any way of measuring if we do a good job in the Upper Maitland as to what effect it has on Garvey Glen and the gullies at the other end of the Maitland? Well,
really, Jeff can help answer this. The rural stormwater management projects really just help you with sort of a 1 in 10, 1 in 15-year rainfall event. It's not going to do much for the major flood events that go beyond that. So it's really going to help in the local area. It's not likely to have a huge impact, say in Goderich or at the bottom end. It's more going to be in the local watershed, say above Harrison. and on the individual farm. It's gonna keep that soil and water
Mhm.
from moving.
Yeah, I think that's the key. We have to get to the farmers and make them understand how much soil is being eroded. They don't realize it because you can't see it, other than in the wintertime, if we have a thaw and the wind picks up the fields that have been plowed in the fall, you can see the topsoil in the ditches and blowing across the road.
That's right.
And it takes a long time to replace that topsoil, and we need to educate them that that's all part of this process, and we've got to get started before we don't have any topsoil left.
That's right. Yeah, we've had, I think, 3 major rainfall events this summer alone.
Yeah.
It's moved an awful lot of soil.
Right. David?
Mayor Bridge, that was kind of my question as well. We would need farmers' approval to get onto their land to plant trees. And I doubt if that would be an issue, if you could kind of show some of the farmers some of the results of what has already been done. I think that, was there not a tree committee in Minto that kind of went by the wayside because they were inactive?
Yeah, but I think some of them, like you, Thompson, and a few of them have been talking about if we did start up a committee. I think we do have some people that would be leaders out there that would like to get involved in this project. I'm excited about it myself because, I mean, reading that report and the fact that we can talk about it, and I know, Phil, yourself and Bill and Terry and I have had talks about the upper Maitland, trying to figure out what we can do from a flood management position. And the fact that when you're reading these things and you're finding out, and I think, Dave, you mentioned it, the fact that there is good, through the Maitland program, they've got some good statistics now showing what rewards there is for the farmer, and that's what they need to see. I mean, I understand that, and so I think I'm hearing from the council here, there seems to be a lot of good support to go further, and let's get working on this. I was in the spring, we had our first meeting, and I think we all kind of wanted to do it right away, I think, but you held us back and said there's some walk before you run type of stuff. So I'm real thrilled that it's come to our table at this point in time, and I know, Mark, we've had some good discussions over a coffee or something, and about what we can do up there, and I like the fact that Wellington North's going to get involved, because one of the big issues we've got in the north part is really where a lot of the water comes from. It comes from them. They're in the high end, and we're on the low end. Yeah, and that's what that's about, by the way. It's altitude. I just found that out. The mayor informed me of that, and that's what it's on the sign. It's high, healthy, and happy. But it's because they're in the highest spot in the area. So
Yeah, they go 4 ways.
4 ways. So.
Yeah. So I think the Grand River's gonna be approaching them about a trees or a conservation project in Wellington North as well.
Yeah. And we have the Northern Nursery now, which makes it really good. We can get the kids involved in the school, which is amazing. So, yeah, I think this is a win-win, so.
Just to add to that, too, George, our meeting tomorrow morning, that group that
That's
we're
right.
meeting with
For the trails, yes.
is quite interested in doing some tree planting.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
talk to
and
you.
we'll be doing some trail walking tomorrow to see if we can get some of our trails connected, so we're having a little bush run tomorrow, gravel run, so to speak. So that's great. Yes, Terry.
I'd just like to make a comment, I guess, to council. If you ever get the opportunity to take the tour at the Scott Farm, I mean, that gives you a real good idea of what can be done, and that's the type of project that we need to get established here. So there are tours coming up, I'm assuming, or
And we'd be happy to organize one for council and
Yeah,
staff.
we
if
maybe,
they'd like to.
I missed the last time you had one.
we actually never got it.
Oh, never got,
no.
okay, because I was
It was
away,
canceled.
it was canceled. So, yeah, I wouldn't mind going down and seeing that again. Can I bring my fishing pole? Really? There's trout there.
Through you, Mayor Bridge, just a suggestion, maybe we could get a couple of the larger farmers in the area as well to take that tour.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they
Well, I
would see
think,
what
yeah, it's a good point.
is possible.
Councilor Elliott.
I'm wondering if there's designated areas that you know that would need trees, or how would, it's great to put a committee together and get enthusiastic about it, but all of a sudden we go door to door and ask them to plant a tree, you know, what criteria does it take for us to, or for even that group to go out and look and know where the trees, or what expertise would it take to understand what trees and where? How does that go about?
Well, it can be done voluntarily, just if their property meets the criteria of the rural water quality project, or if we could get enough help, we could do like we did in the Garvey Glen, and that's, went across the whole watershed and developed a plan for the whole watershed, and then for each individual farm.
Yeah.
Now, that was 40 landowners and 4,000 acres.
Yeah.
Minto is substantially bigger than that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how you would
Yeah.
create that criteria within yourselves, that committee would
And
do
there's
that.
programs, Ron, in there that you can actually, if you qualify, you can go right in the program and you can get, funding
Yeah.
directly, a farmer can get direct funding. I think it's education, is it not, Phil, that trying to get them to understand the,
Demonstration.
Yeah.
Seeing is believing for
Yeah.
folks in rural Ontario, and that's why we developed the Scott project.
Yep.
And had over 600 people, is they want to see it working for themselves on a working farm.
Yep.
So, ideally, I think it is best to have an overall watershed plan, but I think the resources to get that will take us a while to put together.
Yep.
So if we can get interest first and get some local champions and a committee together to help promote it, I think would be the starting point, because it needs to be community-driven.
Yep.
We can't drive it from the top.
No, totally agree.
Just a couple of logistical issues. You mentioned Mapleton had a dedicated staff member. That wouldn't be their only responsibility, but they would be dedicated to support the committee. Is that kind of what you meant? Like their sole role isn't just for this work? Right?
Yeah, the Grand River basically provides secretariat services, so minutes, and they had a forester who promoted the project and did plans for individuals and attended events. So he was basically full-time dedicated to working on projects in Mapleton.
Okay. And the next question, assuming this council does wish to form a committee, are they appointed through council, through their appointment bylaw, or through the Conservation Authority? Are they officially appointed in that fashion? In other words, who will decide if we choose to pass a resolution along the lines of the next steps here to bring names back? Where should the names go? Should they come here, or to you, or to both, or?
We would suggest they be driven through the
Okay.
municipality,
Committee of
since
council.
it would become a municipality project. I'm not sure if the Mapleton Committee is a committee of council or not. They do have a councillor on it.
I don't think it is.
No.
It originally started from the Stewardship Council.
Right.
That's initiated the program. And there's one Mapleton councillor on the committee.
Right.
The rest are farmers or
Mhm.
agency people.
Could be
Yeah.
done a variety of ways,
Right.
whatever, I guess they're comfortable
Okay,
with.
well, we can get out and have a look, and see what.
Mayor Bridge, if you wanted to consider a resolution to direct council and others to go forth and get names and bring them back, perhaps by the end of September, we could
Yep.
bring back a bit of a report with those names and get some kind of governance model going ahead.
You move that? Okay. David, move it, second by Councillor Faulkner. All in favor? Good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
No, not agree?
I know. I did bring that up. No.
I might see you outside.
And next up, we have another great group, all three of them, if they want to bring one more chair up. Are you not coming, Jimmy? You're in the background? Yana, would you like, Yana's our Economic Development Officer for the county. And also Carolyn O'Donnell's our Business Retention Expansion Project Coordinators here today. And just before you start, I want to recognize another guest in the audience that I saw slip in there, in Belinda.
Quietly.
Like,
She's hiding behind the camera there.
who's got the baby, Belinda?
My mom and my nieces are watching right
Oh, very good, very good. Well, welcome to this. I know you're excited about seeing this as well as, yeah. Okay, good.
Might come out.
And that can come right out if you want to take that mic and hold it, because it has,
I can be really loud.
It won't work.
it won't
It
work.
won't work.
It's unfortunate.
Even
So
if
just
you're
take the
loud.
thing
Just
out.
pull the mic
Just
right
pull it
out.
right out, and you can just be like a singer or whatever.
There you go. Don't trip. Watch your
The
step.
lyrics are poor, but
Yeah.
it's a pleasure to be here, and
Watch
especially
that cord. I don't want you to trip on that
break
cord.
the other foot.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
So we're here to talk a little bit about our business retention expansion project that we've just launched a couple weeks ago, and we're really excited about it. It's a county-wide project, and as some of you might remember, we in last November had County Council approve our economic development strategy, and this was a long process, and we learned a lot about our different communities. We learned about our 4 key sectors: manufacturing, agriculture, healthcare, and the creative professional sector. And we learned that they're key because we not only have a lot of people employed in that sector locally, but we have a concentration that's higher than provincial levels in our area, which means we're doing something well in and across the county to be able to support those activities. So we learned about who our who we are essentially, and the next step, which is why BRE follows so nicely, considering our timing, is that we also learned that we need to, our businesses said, talk to us. Speak to us, better understand what it's like to do business in the county and our different communities, and that's essentially what our BRE is going to achieve. So following our economic development strategy, we at the county wrote an economic development implementation plan, and the BRE is one of the 4 activities that we're going to be undertaking in the next year and a half. So what we're looking to do is understand what our business concerns are across the county. What are our competitive advantages? So what kind of strengths do we have to support those 4 key sectors across the county? And the questions that we're going to be asking through the interview program is also going to help us with our economic development activities across the county and within the town of Minto itself. And then BRE is also an excellent way to be able to measure our performance, because when we're asking a business a specific set of questions and we're taking away information, we're also able to understand what kind of concerns there are, resources we're able to provide, and to follow up with those types of concerns. So the purpose of our BRE, first and foremost, is to recognize the economic contribution on a regional level of the businesses within our communities. So we want to also interview our businesses, because we understand that those people that have already invested in our community have the greatest potential in terms of expanding, more so than putting all of our efforts together to try and attract a huge plant to come into our area, hire a whole bunch of people, and hope that they actually stay here. So we want to recognize people's contribution in the area and help them expand. Regardless if it's workforce issues they have, or if it's space they need, or if it's financing, regardless of what it is. The other purpose of the BRE is that we want to diversify our economy and make sure that we have a broad business base here, and that we're creating a very sustainable economy locally. And then we also want to create a rapport. We want to recognize businesses, thank them for doing business within Wellington, within the town of Minto, and be able to create relationships that are long-standing. And the BRE, through OMAF, and we have Jerry Hurst here with us this afternoon to answer all of your difficult questions, is a great toolkit. And the toolkit itself has been revamped, and it's a very exciting time, because it's going to be very unique for Wellington County, because it's a very complex project, as Carolyn will get into sharing a little bit about. So I'll hand the mic over to Carolyn to talk about the details.
Thank you. So you may know a little bit already about the BRE, but I'll talk specifically about how it's going to roll out here in Minto. As Yana suggested, the BRE tool has been developed by OMAF. It's been tried and tested in several communities, so if you Googled it, you'd come up with a lot of reports that have been generated. And so other communities have found it to be a very effective tool for them, and that's one of the reasons that we have some great feelings in using it going into this. So initially it involves identifying businesses, and Yana talked about the fact that we have 4 key sectors, and we're going to be identifying businesses within those sectors throughout the county. In doing that, we select businesses of all shapes and sizes. We don't want to hear just from our large businesses, but small businesses that may be looking for opportunities to grow, and understanding the challenges and the opportunities for both of those. And then really sitting down with each of those businesses and asking them a very specific scripted set of questions, so that we can go into it knowing what questions we want to ask, making sure that we use the time that we have with those businesses very effectively, and then are able to roll up the information at the end of the day, draw some very effective conclusions, and create some action plans going forward. In terms of the county, because we're rolling this out in each of the 7 municipalities, the county is going to be providing some overarching coordination. That's unique in the province, so a lot of the other municipalities have done it individually. Because we're doing it all together, we can learn from each other. There's some great opportunities to share ideas early on, but also to share the findings as it gets rolled out. So that's very unique. We will provide the coordination in terms of setting some key deadlines, getting everybody to sort of be on the same page about how it rolls out, and taking on some of the costs in terms of printing and mailing and those types of things. Once we have the data all collected, there's a really great opportunity for us to collaborate, sit down and have a retreat and get some industry stakeholders and some leaders to the table to digest that information and come up with actions together. We'll also prepare a thank you package to give to the businesses. So this is going to roll out over a 9-month period. We're already well on our way. We've been doing project preparation over the last month. We officially did launch the project on July 15th, and we're just getting ready to move into the next phase, which will be interviewing those businesses. Before we do that, we're making sure the question set makes sense to us, and we're selecting the right businesses. And then you'll see that we do data entry and analysis, and we write some reports, and by March, we have some really great material to move forward with in terms of implementation. The scope we talked about already in terms of 4 sectors. We're going to be identifying 10 businesses within each of those sectors. So here in the town of Minto, there would be 40 interviews that would get completed in each of those specific sectors. And Minto's exploring the idea of doing a retail or downtown survey as well, so that would add on 10 more. So your community BR&E, I'm going to let Yana talk a little bit about how this has rolled out in terms of the involvement from the Economic Development Group.
Sure, so we just had our monthly meeting with our Municipal Economic Development Group, and BRE OMAFRA toolkit says that we have to have a task force, and we don't want to duplicate and create more meetings, and we already have a great bunch of people, and we have every municipality represented on this group, so that group is acting as the task force for this project. Each municipality is going to be coordinating their own interviews. We've got the countywide here to help logistically print everything to lighten the burden, but the coordinators at the town of Minto are going to be Bill White and Mandy Jones. And then the Economic Development and Planning Committee at the town will, of course, be kept abreast of all activities throughout the BR&E, as well as red flag issues. And then just for those individuals who aren't familiar with our Municipal Economic Development Group, this group was pivotal in terms of getting a county-wide economic development strategy. And really, I gave a presentation to Standard & Poor's last week for our credit review, our annual credit review, and they're very impressed with how far we've come in the county in terms of the activities that we've undertaken and the knowledge that we're collecting from our community. So any questions, we'd be happy to answer in terms of BR&E activities for the next, until March. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Council? Questions for Sharon?
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Sure.
So it's each local is going to be, the interviews are going to be conducted by their own people. So the county is not sending a representative to each of those sets of interviews. I'm just wondering about consistency throughout the county. That's the only thing I was
That's
questioning.
correct. So the town of Minto will be represented by 2 individuals, one doing the asking questions, the other person doing recording of the information, and that'll create a really nice 3-person interview. It'll be intimate, creating that rapport and so forth.
Okay.
And the nice thing, they're all being trained, so there'll be a consistent.
Okay, that's where the consistency.
The consistency, yeah, they'll be trained, and we were talking about that today, actually. at our
So
committee
we're gonna
meeting.
train Bill?
Yeah, we're gonna try to train Bill and Mandy. Mandy's training
I have no
Bill.
problem with Mandy, but Bill.
Jerry's a backup. And one of the things that wasn't brought up there is if we get a red flag or something that's really desperately we need, like if, maybe if a business looks like it might be closing or something that happens in the interview process, I believe, Deanna, you're the go-to person for a red flag issue. So right away, we could jump into it so that before, so there's a really good mesh there. And it's
Good.
Yep. Looks well. Great job.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm excited about it. This is,
Yeah,
I love
sounds good.
economic development.
I know you do.
And speaking of economic development, we have another one. And Linda, do you want to come up and, are you coming alone? And I know, Yana, you got to get going because you've got to catch a flight. Let's see you.
Oh,
I think I'm on my own.
safe flight.
Yeah, you got a lot of backup here if you need it.
Yeah, I have a lot of backup. I just wait for, thank you
Yep.
very much for welcoming me here, Wishbone Mayor and councillors, most of whom I've met already and talked to. This has been a terrific pleasure to work with you on this particular project. And I'll just get into the, some of you have already seen part of this PowerPoint, so I'm just going to go through it quickly because there are some people here who haven't seen it. But in the end, we had some good news.
Just want to, just pick the
overall-
microphone up, Linda,
Can you not
see
hear
if
me?
that's just, it doesn't pick up on
Okay.
the, and we got so many people watch this the next day and on Whiteman that, you know,
Okay.
we don't want them to have no sound.
I'm just trying to remember the clicking system here.
Probably won't work.
Nope.
Maybe Mandy can give you a hand.
There we go.
Gordon.
No, okay.
Or Gordon.
Yeah, no, I'm
Gordon's a
good.
good lad.
Got it? Okay.
Gordon's really good at
He's
this.
better than Vanna White, for heaven's sake. Gordon White. Light her up, Gordy.
Thanks, Gord. Yes, it has been a pleasure. I've known about Minto, of course, because I worked in Wellington, but getting close to everybody that's in a business here has been really wonderful. And of course, we had the help of the Ontario government, and so I thought we been able to move forward. Can you? Good to go?
Good to
Yeah,
go.
clicked on the right hand
Maybe
side.
he
I
isn't so
apologize.
good.
I
Sorry,
apologize.
Gordon.
Your technical crew.
Put a lot of pressure on Gordon.
Oh,
there.
yay,
I
Mandy.
think I can probably do it.
Got him out of his element.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'm good. I think I'm okay, Gord. Yeah, I think so.
Poor Gordon.
There we go.
There we go. Gordon got fired.
So I hope this doesn't count against my time. Can I start? from
No,
now?
Yes,
they're fine.
yes.
Okay,
Take the
good.
time you need.
Some people have asked me what I've been doing in Minto, so I said I'm helping with the business incubator, and what's an incubator? And the minute I tell them, no matter where they've come from, they think it's an amazing idea. So you're really ahead of the game with this one, and the idea behind it is we want to rent space to fledgling businesses. We want to provide training and mentors as well, and an interaction between the tenants themselves. They will learn from one another, and this particular sites that we've been looking at have meeting spaces where they can get together amongst themselves and with mentors and other people and share the resources, and this helps cut down the cost. So this is a typical incubator that's been done in other places. This is what we're trying to do here. Now, an incubator is really to foster economic development, and this type of program here is a result of your own business retention survey years ago and subsequent kinds of research that you've done. So this is like sort of the pinnacle of all the work that you've been doing over the years, and it's really going to help. In this particular case, you're going to be looking at cultural activities and the more creative kind of businesses that you already have happening here. This is a methodology which I think most of you are familiar with. Your own staff went out to, and committee members went out to look at other incubators, and from that I could take the best of the best and watch out for some things that might be a problem and try and avoid them in your own planning. I did additional research and surveyed 20 businesses and got some amazing results out of the surveys. We looked at some spaces, and then finally I sat down and did the analysis, which you have with you now in the report. Some of the best things that I want to share with you came out of the survey, and this is the kinds of businesses that you have. And just looking at it visually, there's a nice mix. There's some manufacturing, there's business services, there's actually one farm that came in after this was done, completed the survey, and most of them were full-time. So that looks like a healthy kind of business environment, and lots of retail, which means your downtowns are pretty active. So I liked everything that came out of this survey.
And again, the businesses we were looking at were who had been here for, you know, the last couple of years, and most of them had been here less than 3 years. Another good sign that businesses are moving in. This question was, would the incubator have been useful to you? And I think most everybody that had a business said yes. But some people said not at all. But those people also said to me that if they had access to the incubator, to mentors and to other people, they would sign on as outreach. And there are some models of incubators that have an outreach program. People are not actually renting the spaces, but they are connected for a lesser fee. So that's something that we've recommended. Excuse me, this is very helpful, and it fit in actually with the other models of incubators that were surveyed across the province. What would people like to have there? Well, training, mentors, high-speed internet, which of course you have excellent service here, individual office space, office furniture, heat and hydro, everything provided for a low cost. So our challenge became, how are we going to find that and manage that? And then I guess the other question is, how are we going to govern it? And they had the opportunity to say, and you can see, just Minto staff or whatever, but generally people felt that a combination of government help from Minto staff or other help combined with business people was the model to go. And you know, a slight difference between whether it should be all business or majority of business versus government, but I don't think that really makes a lot of difference. Oops. This is an outstanding result to me, even though I was only interviewing 20 people. Generally in rural townships, you're seeing young people move out. Here we have people, the majority, 60%, in Minto having businesses under the age of 39. That's very, very unusual. Now I've only interviewed 20 people, but since I did this, 2 more businesses I know have moved in with young people in them as well. This is a very positive sign for Minto. So again, because you did your BRNE and so many other kinds of surveys leading up to this, you're starting to see the results in your community. And the incubator is only going to help that move forward. These are in the report, and I won't go over them all individually, but why did people come to Minto? It was everything from, they felt this was a great place to do business, they felt there was a future here, they felt there was already technical expertise, and the fact that there was other youthful businesses. And if you think about the businesses that are here, and the ones that you know, who are under 39, most of them have families. Again, having somebody move into a rural community with a young family is what all rural communities are hoping to have, and you're getting that with new businesses as well. Some of you might think, because housing here is very reasonable, that that would be one of the reasons why people would come. It is, but it's not most important. For business people to move to this community, it is about the attitudes, the support they get, and you know, everything from the Chamber of Commerce to the Mayor's Breakfast. All of these things were mentioned to me at one point. And one person said, and I thought, this is why, and the BRNE is going to be talking to people, this is why you have to talk to people. One person said to me, the reason why they liked living in Harriston was because they had good sidewalks downtown. They could get out, their wife who lived out of town could get into town with the baby stroller and walk around, get out of the house in the winter time. Very small thing that you have, that you do, but it makes a difference to some people with families. So in the end, I came up with 3 different clusters that would fit the criteria of your creative businesses. And the first one is sort of obvious, technical industries. The IT clusters, you've already got Whiteman's here. The second one, again, is somewhat obvious in that you have creative, cultural businesses in the arts, graphic design, and film. And I just read on the weekend, some of you may have read this as well, in the Toronto Star, about the jingle writers for TV who have a studio in Coboconk. And they're sending their jingles and their TV productions all over North America. Why? Because they have the kinds of IT support that they need. Doesn't really matter where they are. So again, this is the attraction that Minto has as well. And then this last one was one that I think with aging demographic plus these younger people, everyone is interested in personal enhancement, in their health, their welfare, and I thought that creative aesthetic businesses were also another sector that you could work on. And again, this report was finished, but I understand from Gord that an aesthetic studio has moved into the same block of stores that we were thinking of locating our own, or locating the incubator. So there's that wave of this kind of self-improvement enhancement kind of creative area. Now, it wasn't my job to come up with the final structure or function. That's up to your committee and your staff as you go forward. But we did look at lots of places. One, Elora Street, seems to be working out the best. But the other option that was good was the second floor of the OPP station in Palmerston. Now, that's not necessarily available to us right now, but it might depend on when you get there, when you start to work on this more. Your location, and I've given you the financials, and I'm happy to go over those with you as well. But even though financially it looks like the two locations are fairly similar, and one is a bit smaller, so you have perhaps less offices there, it's where your incubator is going to be situated that is really important. Is it going to be situated where it's going to be seen, or is it going to be on the main street? And being very visible to other business people traveling through who might be thinking of moving here and happen to see it, its position within your community is important too. So it isn't always about the finances, it's about these other aspects. As far as next steps go, everything's been completed. Economic Development Committee is fantastic. They gave me lots of good feedback. We've done the additions to the report. It was finished a while ago, and we hoped that we would get before council in July, but we're here now. And we're starting to, my team and my colleagues are starting to work now on the marketing plan to assist with the videos that you have that talk about what a great location Minto is for attracting other folks. And so, you know, in your budget year 2014, it would be helpful for us, I guess, if we're going to be doing these kinds of promotions, if I knew, you know, what you were going to be doing with the incubator, because it's a tremendous asset to add to any promotion that we're doing about your community. So that's my work, and if you want to, if you haven't taken a look at the financials, they are on page 22. And I apologize, you got a copy that had no page numbers in it, but I brought 10 more that do have page numbers. So hopefully you can find those. So thank you. It has been an amazing, as I say, pleasure and learning experience for me to meet your business people, and your staff have been terrific. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Questions for Linda?
Through you, Mayor Bridge, looking at your chart, and I guess you say regarding the 4 original sites,
Yes.
you mentioned above a restaurant, but you don't, is that not public information what that site was? It doesn't mention what restaurant and what community.
I think this is where Gord's going to have to help me. I forget.
Harry Stone's on it.
Yeah. Harry Stone's, is that right? Yeah.
That was above Harry Stone's there on the second floor.
Yeah.
That's just
It would be great if we could renovate that building and have it as a center. It would be amazing, but I wouldn't even want to hazard a guess of what it would cost to do it.
That's the issue.
Yeah, I did have some pictures. I didn't include them in the PowerPoint. It is a beautiful space, and it does fit the model that a lot of new entrepreneurs like to be in, where there's a lot of exposed brickwork and historical building. But yeah, there's a lot of work to do there.
And my other question was, again, the same chart, you dealt with parking,
Yes.
and you mentioned that one Elora was, there was good parking there. Right.
Yes,
And I would question that, to be honest with you.
okay.
Because one of the tenants has just left there because of a parking issue, and we've had to deal with parking on the street there because of the stoplights and the trucks making the wide turns, and probably shouldn't be any parking in front of that building if we, you know, if we don't have a problem now, we will have eventually
will.
because
Yeah.
of those, so, and then parking in behind there, I don't think it's the handiest either, so I'm just wondering about parking for that site.
There was parking on the side, and there was some parking at the back that may be for the tenants, but there was some parking available on the side and on the street. You know, I understand your point about people turning there, but say compared to the other locations we looked at that were right on the main thoroughfare, it was much better there than there, so.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, George, I have one.
Councillor Paul.
Through you, Mayor Bridge, the selection of a site, I take it that's contiguous with the committee's work, so that if another site
Oh, yeah.
came to attention, that could be just researched and added on as okay, thank you.
I think part of it, Linda, is that your work was to come up with at least a couple sites that you could work a budget through.
Yeah.
To make sure that, are we going to be like in a $30,000 deficit or in a surplus or whatever, and that. But I totally agree with you, Councillor Faulkner, that if some other site came up, and there might be the time we get rolling, then we could look at other opportunities, so if you know any.
And I guess in response, Councillor, you've got the tables here, so you basically just have to fit in the new numbers and
That's right.
see,
Yep.
see
Yep.
what happens.
Yep.
And as you know, there were some locations that you surveyed on your own that cost $100,000 to put together and some didn't have tenants for a while. So this is like bare bones, let's get it done and let's get some people there. You've already got some momentum with people coming in. It's just nothing but a good story, I don't think, or I think.
Thank you.
Oh, well done, and I know the Economic Development Committee is excited about working on this. Hey, Rick?
100%.
There you go.
All right.
Bill?
Mayor Bridge, just thank you for your work.
Oh, well, thank you very much. As I
Only
say, it
came
was a
in
pleasure.
late, but to bring this to a conclusion, we would need a motion to approve the report for the study.
Moved by Councillor Hemley, second by Councillor Faulkner, all in favor? Approved. Thanks, Linda.
Thanks, Linda. No,
Right.
excuse me.
Good speaking.
Hey.
Good job.
See?
Here.
You don't have to leave.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I'm at public question period, I believe. Public question period, has anybody got a question for us? Correspondence received for information or requiring direction of council. You got your e-agenda. Any comments? The one on the brushing on the 13th line, did you ever look at what they're doing up on that? That's really good, eh? That's a lot of stuff there. Okay. Motion to approve? Councillor Faulkner, Councillor Turton, all in favor? Carried. Scan of emails of August 2nd. Did you want to?
Mayor Bridge, if I may, on one item, we did copy the Terry Fox Run information for you. Last year, I believe, Belinda Whitt-Graham did coordinate a team from Minto, and maybe that's something that Matt and Mandy and perhaps Tanya could have a look at and see if we can't coordinate another group to represent the town at this very important event. So
great.
we'll take that, if that's your direction, we'll be in touch with you.
Good.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Mayor Bridge? I don't recall the number one, the motion 441, motion to carry out a review of the vessel operation restriction regulation. I don't recall that one. Getting it. What is that all about? Is that the water vessels?
Yeah, the Great Lakes.
Okay,
Great Lakes.
okay,
That was to keep them from.
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay. And we're into reports
I guess we would just include those other correspondence in that.
in that other motion.
Motion.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, committee minutes received, Maitland Valley Conservation Authority. Terry, is there anything in there that?
No, I don't think so, other than, no, I think, Maitland Valley Conservation Authority wants to work with us on the trees, and I think we certainly need to be coordinating the effort and getting started on the project. So, I think there's a lot of interest out there
I think so.
in the community, and it's a win-win situation, so
Yeah.
hopefully we'll see fit to support it.
Great. Okay. Motion to accept the minutes. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Hamley, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Staff reports. And we have the first one. Are you taking that, Sean? Or is Peggy taking it?
I can do it, Mayor Bridge.
Yeah.
This is the annual Palmerston Fall Fair Parade. The fair is scheduled for August 23rd, 24th, and 25th. The parade is Friday evening, and the theme is Back to Our Roots. It starts at 6:30 p.m. at the corner of Daly Street and Brunswick Street, Palmerston, and it finishes at the arena or fairgrounds. We've normally passed a bylaw to temporarily close the road between the hours of 6:30 and 8 so that the parade can occur. And the event organizers have received the appropriate sign-offs from emergency services, public works, county, and so forth. So a recommendation is that you receive the report and consider the bylaw, which is in your regular session, for adoption.
All in favor? Moved by Councillor Elliott, second by Councillor Faulkner, all in favor? Okay, and just on that note, and I was gonna do it for down the road, but we do have the train for the council, so any councillors that can make it, I know Councillor Elliott does the speaking at it usually, and Rick, you're still busy with fire trucks and stuff. You'll be in it, I would assume. So anybody else that wants to come over, we got the little train again, and it's all organized, we just come meet at 6:30 in
Lawrence Park.
Lawrence Park. Okay,
Are you wearing a mask this year?
Or a
I
hat.
got my hat,
Oh, the hat.
my conductor's hat.
Were you driving again?
For the
I can let somebody else drive if they want, I don't care.
Exhaust.
Actually, exhaust kills you, so.
Seal.
Shortening my life as I do it, but anyways, good stuff. Okay, next.
Mayor Bridge, this report is on the Harrison Senior School appraisal and sale of the property, 24 George Street North. You'll recall July 2nd, we adopted a bylaw and resolution authorizing the mayor and I to sign a servicing agreement that allowed this purchase to move forward. Once that agreement was signed between the parties, the purchasers, Jeremy and Jeff Metzger, waived their conditions in the agreement of purchase and sale. So one of the remaining conditions is that the town comply with its disposition of property bylaw. In order to do that, we have to declare the land surplus, which council actually did in open session on February 19th. That was at the time we brought council up to date with the fact that we did have an offer back at that time, and that we would proceed to negotiate the terms of the final sale. We've given notice in the Wellington Advertiser and the Minto Express of the pending sale. I've had no comments forwarded to me with regard to it, with regard to this sale since that notice was posted. The final requirement was that we conduct an appraisal of the fair market value of the land. That appraisal came in out of S.W. Irvine and Associates of Guelph. They were the lowest quote on that appraisal, and the value of the property was set up as of the time of the agreement of purchase and sale at $111,000. We purchased the property early last summer at about $60,000 from the school board. The balance of the difference between 105 and 60 covers the costs that we have in it as far as legal, consulting, the survey work. I did attach or provide to you a copy of the site plan that you have approved, which is the colored version with the layout of the subdivision, And on the back part of that is also the survey drawing as it stands right now. That survey drawing is out for review with the, this would be on your desks, so. that'll be
Oh, yeah, that one, right.
That will be on your desk for your information, just in case you wanted to keep that, but you can see there's quite a number of parts and quite a complicated transaction that will occur. But that is scheduled to close August 16th. At that time, the property would be turned over to the Metzgers, save and accept the green portion, which is the portion that is the stormwater pond and park, slightly over an acre in size, and I believe that is part, if I may,
You sure may.
part 11 on the survey drawing, so. Our recommendation is that you receive the report, and there is a bylaw and regular session authorizing the mayor and I to sign any and all documents with the Metzgers to conclude this transaction.
Perfect.
Okay. Moved by Mary Lou, second by Dave. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Good.
Mayor Bridge, on the CAO clerk report on the 2014 insurance renewal. At your July 16th meeting, you received a report from myself indicating that if you were going to go out for proposals on your insurance renewal, that that direction ought to be given sometime soon this summer so that we were in place to deal with it by the expiration of our current policy, which is in March 2014. I raised the issue of having a third party assist with reviewing and preparing RFP, should council choose to do that. And you asked me to bring back a cost estimate for these third parties. I contacted the town of Erin, who had recently done it, and I had known that they had used a consultant. His name was Robert Harder. I also knew that the city of North Bay had used a consultant, and that gentleman's name was Randy Bushy. I spoke to both gentlemen several times, exchanged emails, and I have attached to the report a summary of the information they provided to me. There's quite a lot of other background material that came in as well. Mr. Harder, who worked for the town of Erin, has actually quite an extensive client list. He has done these for many municipalities. His proposal is different from Mr. Bushy in that he includes what he calls a risk assessment, and the contents of that document are included in his proposal. The risk assessment really has him have a look at where we are as a municipality, what we're doing from a risk management point of view, and that he feels helps frame what your RFP might read like. His cost in total is $13,000, sorry, $11,000. There is an error in the paragraph that says with the risk assessment, the estimated cost is $8,000. In fact, without the risk assessment, the estimated cost is $8,000 for Mr. Harder. So it's $3,000 more than that. Mr. Bushy has done the work for North Bay. As I mentioned, he has a reference letter from the city. He essentially did what Mr. Harder does, save and accept. He doesn't do a formal risk assessment process. So he would provide a little less of a service than Mr. Harder. His proposal cost is $3,000 to $5,000 depending on the number of proposals received. In terms of timing, both of the gentlemen emphasized the need to get started, but not too early, because you want to make sure you get the attention of the market at the right time. So if council was interested in going out to proposals, then starting in September, we would probably begin to get that material together and get it out September, October, have proposals come in and review them November, December, and perhaps approve something sometime in the new year. It's entirely up to you whether you wish to go out to proposal. It's entirely up to you whether you wish staff to get some assistance from Mr. Harder's or Mr. Bushy. And the only stipulation that is in the previous council resolutions is that you have said that you will tender out for carrier and a local broker. So that would be in the same RFP. You made that clear to me in your resolution when a matter arose with one of the other local brokers back last fall. So that's where we stand on this. And I'm seeking your direction. The recommendation is that simply you receive the report and provide direction on whether you wish to proceed to proposals and whether you wish to engage a consultant to help us out.
When we brought this up last month, one of the concerns I had was how much staff time would be involved in the RFP. And that really wasn't discussed in their proposal. In fact, I think they helped put out the RFP and then analyze it. But was there any discussions on how much staff time is involved in preparing it?
I guess the opinion was that whatever help we needed to provide, we could, and that the consultants would word it such that we wouldn't be facing numerous demands from different insurance companies all wanting the same thing at different times. So they would try to manage that on our behalf so that there would be less work involved. I'm comfortable that we can, whatever is needed based on my discussions with these gentlemen, whether or not they're involved, I think we can manage that workload.
Through you, Mayor Bridge, the first thing that I want to say is that without risk assessment, to me, it's throwing money away to get a consulting on the, to hire a consultant for the process. Because risk assessment is what it's all about, in my opinion, today. The second thing is that I believe in the report I read that there's only 4 or 5 insurance companies that could bid on this project. That kind of tells me that they're probably all very similar coverage. So all I'm saying is I got no problem with what we're pursuing here, but I think it should include the risk assessment, because that would make in my opinion, the difference between the 4 companies. Thank you.
Yeah, just through you, Mayor Bridge, I think, I personally think that we should look at some form of consulting on this issue, because basically this council inherited what we had in the way of insurance in the past, and I think there's probably a learning experience that we could learn more about insurance and what we do have in the way of coverage, and how to handle insurance issues in the future. So I think we should be doing one or the other. I'm not, I have to differ from Councillor Faulkner. I'm not sure the risk assessment part of it is all that important. I think CAO White's probably pretty well in tune with that type of issue, and I think, you know, as you're reviewing your insurance, you'll probably be attuned to the risks involved.
Councilor Hammond.
Well, just my comment would be that as long as I've sat on council, we've always used the local people here in our municipality, and I think they've treated us pretty fair. We did do some investigation there. I think the one term that I was on, and they were giving us a pretty fair shake. So I guess it's going to be up to us if we're going to spend the $13,000 or $14,000. It'll probably turn into $15,000 or $20,000. But I think we should have our people that we do deal with come in and have a chat with us. If they can sharpen their pencils, fine. If they're competitive with their other companies, that's fine too.
Councillor Elliott.
I agree with Councillor Hamley in the fact that we've had this coverage, and I'm a little disappointed that we don't understand what we're being covered for, or insurance policies. I would think when we're insured, we would have an idea what we're being insured and what we're being covered for. And if we don't know, then we should be able to trust our agent or our people to explain to us the insurance coverages that we do have. To pay somebody, I have trouble with consultants, I really do, and to pay somebody $13,000 to come in and tell us that, yeah, you got pretty good coverage here, and that should be our RFP. You know, like, that's what you've got for insurance is tell them what you already have and go out and ask somebody to propose a fee for it. And I also agree with Councillor Hemley in the fact that we should trust the integrity of our brokers to give us the information that we need. And yes, if they say, you know, like that you're getting the best coverage that we can get for the dollar you got forward, then maybe there's some, needs to be some trust in something like that, because we are dealing with people that we know, and our taxpayers, and be a part of our community for years. And I'd like to talk to them first before we ever take a decision to go out and talk to a stranger, and especially when you're going to be dealing with somebody out of Toronto that we've never seen or didn't know, and so, or wherever. And I would think we'd take the opportunity to talk to our present insurance company first, and then if we're not satisfied with the information they give forth, then we start looking towards this. But I don't think we've really had to sat down and talked to our brokers and asked what information we need to know. And that would be on my first move, and that costs us nothing to do that. And then at that fact, then we can make a decision. I don't think we have anything we gotta move forward to until September anyway, as Mr. White has said. So that'd be my thoughts.
Thank you, Mayor Bridge. I know that over the last number of years, 1 or 2 times, we've looked at the reciprocal. And I'm not sure, but I don't believe that we had a warm fuzzy feeling about going that route. And that's kind of why we stayed with Cowan. And I agree. I mean, it's local stuff, but what intrigues me is, I think our CEO White said that Robert Harder has a whole host of different municipalities that he has worked with. And it'd be interesting to know exactly some of the results that he has found. And I know that doing this, if we go ahead with this, we'd certainly find out what some of the potential results are. But I mean, it's a kind of a catch-22, I think, by going out and doing what we're talking about doing. Kind of agree with Ron. I mean, we do have the Cowan people here talking to us about it, but if we're not insurance people, it's sometimes difficult to understand it. So if this would get us a better understanding of what we have, or what we should have, or what we need. I mean, we had a disagreement here a few minutes ago, well, not really a disagreement on whether we needed risk or we didn't need risk. I mean, it's a big kettle of fish today, insurance. So.
I guess my concern, I'm paying a consultant, I'm sort of with Councillor Elliott on this. I'm not sure, the reason this sort of came up, if you do recall, was the fact that some local municipalities around us have gone out and there is a little bit more competitive nature in the business. And in fairness to previous councils, there was times, I'm sure, that you're lucky to get insurance, let alone whether you get out there and get 3 or 4 quotes from 3 or 4 companies. So times have changed a little bit, and with some of the other companies that are there, I would think that we'd have enough expertise, Bill, and I'm grasping at straws here, enough expertise around the department head table and even going to our local brokers if we had to ask them if, when we do our RFP, are we going to be comparing apples to apples? And that's what the concern I had originally was, if Cowan came in with one, and let's say Jardine or whatever came in with one, and one was $60,000 less, are we getting $60,000 less coverage? That would be a concern. But I think we can, I would think most of those companies are out there. We could probably figure that out. And then Mary Lou had a good point when she talked about whether that takes a whole bunch of staff time, and that could be $10,000 in staff time.
But I don't think the consultant is going to
Was that going to help us there? I don't think. Yeah, that's what I got from that, Mary Lou, too. So I still feel we should go out. I think the taxpayers deserve the fact that we haven't gone out for 10 years, and there is some competitive rates out there. I'm quite happy with Cowan's, and with our local brokers have done a good service for us, but I think our taxpayers maybe would want us to at least check it out every now and again. We've done a lot of other things, but make sure that we have apples to apples. And and I'm with you, Councillor Turton, reciprocal. I've read a bit about it, and I'm not willing to take that gamble, because you can get saved money on the short term, could lose it on the long term. So, and that's putting a lot of things out there. So, I don't know. That's where my thought is. Councillor Elliott.
May I say, I believe all of us around the table here still want to use a local broker no matter what.
Yeah, I think so.
insurance
I think
covers.
so.
And that's why I suggest that we could probably deal with our local broker, the insurance company, and the insurance people that we know locally to help us with this, instead of paying somebody $13,000. Because either way, it's, I mean,
Are you saying that go to our local brokers and ask them to get 2 or 3 competitive
no,
bids?
I would suggest they sit down with us and we have a chat about it to see, and then.
What our coverage is?
And then we'd see what our next move would be.
I'm confused.
Okay. There's no confusion here in the fact that we can pick a Paul Brown and ask him to come into to a meeting or sit down with us and say, here's our, Paul knows our coverage, or whoever is our local broker, and come in and take a look at our insurance coverages and say, yeah, these are the coverages you got, and this is what you're paying for. And this is what you would pay for if you get somewhere else.
Okay. No, I got a problem with that.
Without paying somebody $13,000.
Well, I know, but it would be fair to Paul if I said to Paul, come and do that for us, and then Paul can't quote. You know, and maybe that wouldn't be fair to Paul. I mean, that's the thing I see right away. Like, I mean, if he's saying, here's what you need, I don't know, if there's a way around that,
We're
Ron, fine.
not gonna get local, you're suggesting we're not going to have local people act as a broker?
No, I'm saying we want local people to ask their broker, but if we have them come in and tell us, and they still have to quote for it, right? Yep, sorry. It's a
Mayor Bridge, the resolution you have on the books is that if you go to proposals on this, you would tender carrier and with a local broker. Some of these companies, most of them are brokers themselves. You don't have to have a broker. But this council is saying they want that local person to be here as part of the RFP and to bid, so that we have that support locally. You'll recall we had 3 brokers that I know of, Mr. Brown, Mr. Ritz, Mr. Wiley, and the idea at the time back in October was that you wanted to make it fair for all of them.
That's correct.
And that was why the recommendation is that you go, if you are going to proposal, go to proposal for a carrier and a local broker. Mr. Brown, Mr. Wiley, Mr. Ritz can go to any one of these carriers and work with them to put in a bid on the RFP. In fact, that would be what we would expect if we're going. If you want to sit down with Mr. Brown, Mr. Ritz, and Mr. Wiley, myself, and have them help me put the RFP together, as long as we had all 3 involved, I don't suppose that would be a bad thing. But I think it would be important that those individuals also be allowed to bid.
I was gonna
I
say,
think and we need to make it fair so that all 3 or 4, if there's more out there I don't know about, everyone who wants to bid has a chance to do
and that's
that.
what I was trying to get at, Ron, I didn't want one of them not to be able to bid, because they're helping us out, right?
I'm saying that too. I'm saying exactly that. That's exactly what I was saying, as quoted in there. But I also, we may not have to do an RFP if is what I'm saying. We talk to them before we do that. We don't talk to them about whether we need an RFP. We talk to them about our insurance coverage. We haven't got, we're all sitting here telling us we don't know enough about our insurance. And
No, I'm not saying that. I don't.
Okay, so we do, so we don't need,
Well,
we don't need a consultant.
that's not what we're saying, we don't know anything about our insurance, I don't think anybody feels that,
No.
I don't know.
I don't know. That's what I'm getting.
Maybe I'm responsible for that, but I think insurance is very complex, and I don't pretend to understand all the
Absolutely.
ramifications of
Need a
insurance.
broker.
And that's why I think
We should pay
having
somebody.
someone from the outside maybe explain the various situations to us and the various coverages would be beneficial.
13.
It's well, I don't think I'd be looking at the more expensive one of the 2, but I'm in agreement that, you know, we should find out if we're getting the best bang for our buck, because that's our duty to our ratepayers, and we don't know that right now. We just know every year we get, the policy's going to be $249,734, and we pay it. I don't know if that's, if we're getting value there or not, and,
I'm suggesting that the advice of our local brokers is as good as a outside person coming into it.
well, I think I think the money would be well spent. That's my personal opinion.
I just want to more or less repeat what Deputy Mayor Fisk said in a different, it is $249,000. It's a very big expense for our town. And I think it is our responsibility to make sure that, you know, we don't have the opportunity to reduce that cost in any way. We've had excellent insurance coverage and we have no complaints, but it is a very big expense. So if there is the opportunity to save a substantial amount of money, I think the purpose of asking the consultant in the first place is to make sure that on these quotes, we're comparing apples and apples. That if we do have the opportunity to save some money, we're not giving up coverage in order to do that. That we're maintaining everything we've got now, if we do go out for the RFPs. And I don't agree with $13,000 by any means, but I think that even a consultant reviewing our RFPs after the fact and just making sure that we are comparing apples to apples would be worth something to the town, that we don't lose coverage.
Councillor Faulkner.
And that's exactly why I think risk assessment has to be part of that. You have to, risk assessment to me is part of the thing, the equation that you know what you're being covered for. To me, that's risk assessment is when you say this is what you're covered for. No, this isn't what you're covered for. And the risk is not covering for that area is this much. Yeah, that's just my feeling is that if we're going to spend the money on consultants, it has to include risk assessment. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, just my fear is, you know, we'll go ahead and hire someone to do some legwork for us, and, you know, in the long run, we're gonna find out that, you know, our local broker has been upfront and honest with us, which I'm sure he is, and, you know, there's gonna be no gain. That's my only concern. I would love to know all this other stuff too, but I guess I'm putting my faith in the local people that I know, and I'd have a hard time spending $8,000 or $13,000 to find out that, you know, we are getting a good bang for a buck. That's my only concern. But, you know, knowledge, I would love to have some more knowledge on the insurance business. Like Terry said, I don't know much about insurance myself, but.
Are you saying, Bill, we go to our local brokers and ask them to sit down to make sure we have
Adequate coverage.
And if we went to all four of them, or three of them, and we have three, right? And said, would you sit down in a room and make sure that, and they've all been involved with account, right?
Yeah.
But what my concern would be, you'd have to have everybody there, because if one of them was there and set up the RFP, how can they actually go out and quote on it? Would that be a concern? Maybe I'm wrong on that, it just perceptionally be a concern.
Mayor Bridge, I have had a chat with Mr. Brown on this issue, and I guess my point was, we want the local brokers to be part of the carriers and make bids.
Right.
Correct.
This person, whether you want them or not, to help review the RFPs and make recommendations to you is only that, someone to help, and another voice who may know the business better than myself or Mr. Duff or anyone else in the staff. What I was suggesting is that if there was some concern that we weren't wanting to deal local or approaching the local people, that I'd be happy to sit down with the three local brokers with our RFP and let them have a look at it. I'm quite comfortable with the coverage we have. I think it's excellent coverage. I think when Mr. Ritz and Mr. Smith come here and make a presentation to you each year, they go through it at length. And Mr. Duff and I also review it at length. And I'm no expert, but I think we're very comfortable that we're properly covered and we have excellent coverage. And the municipality is in no way exposed by inadequate coverage. So I'm very comfortable with that end of things. I might suggest that you might want to consider breaking down the question into 2 points. One, whether or not you want us to go out to RFP, and two, whether or not you want to engage any outside assistance.
Right.
I guess the third part to that would be whether you want us to first meet with the local brokers or not. to assess,
That
or
makes
help
sense.
assess our RFP.
Well, like Mary Lou said, 249,000, well, I think $250,000 sounds bigger, doesn't it? That's a lot of money to go out of our community. And, whatever you guys decide, majority rule, so.
But I just want to assure council that we are not excluding the local brokers. We're very
No.
much including them.
Yeah, no, it's not going
Making it a
outside.
requirement.
No. But whether we want to go out, so do you want to phrase the question then that the first one would be whether we want to go out for an RFP totally, without worrying about consultants or anything else, just because of the nature of what's been happening out there in the marketplace. And you know, we've had Wellington North come in $60,000 less. We've had Gulf Aramasa come in $60,000 less when they went out to market. So that's out there. I mean, everybody sees that. Our taxpayers see that. So do you want to have a vote on that first? And then if that goes down, then there's no use talking about the other stuff.
That's right.
Right? So let's have can I have a motion on that? Councilor?
I'd feel a lot more comfortable if we sat down and talked to our brokers first, before we make any decision on whether to go RFP.
Oh, that's logistics, though.
No, it isn't logistics, because we agree right now to go on an RFP, we're going to RFP, whether we decide after we talk to them, it may give me a decision whether I want to move that way. It certainly is. I don't know.
Councilor?
Wait,
No, I'm just not understanding why we would talk to the brokers. The brokers will remain engaged no matter which insurance company we're with, right? We've decided that we want to maintain local brokerage.
why do we want an RFP?
Well, that's what we're asking, this is what we're putting up for a vote, Ron. I mean, if we decide the council doesn't want the RFP, then we're not even gonna go any further, right?
We don't understand insurance, but we want an RFP. Let's understand, is that what we're saying?
That's not what we're
No.
saying. We're saying it's $250,000 expense for our town,
Okay.
and that we want to make sure that we are getting the best bang for our buck. There may be another alternative. It may even force our current insurance company to sharpen their pencil as much as they can.
I believe it will. We can do that too.
Mayor Bridge, you alluded to Erin and Wellington North.
It's Guelph Aramasa.
Sorry, Guelph Aramasa, Wellington North, both went the RFP route and found that they could get their insurance cheaper. And did they, in the end, did they deal with local,
I'm not sure if they dealt with local brokers or not, to be honest with you. So that, I couldn't tell you for sure. I don't know, did Wellington North do with the local broker?
I'm not gonna say I don't know.
No, I don't know for sure.
Your worship, if maybe Mr. Brown could be neutral and maybe give us an opinion, or is that not, Paul, you have anything?
Wish of the council.
Does anyone mind if Paul speaks?
No problem.
No problem with it?
I think it's,
Oh, no, Paul, if you wouldn't mind coming up, because they'll hear that, and they'll, who is that guy back there? You know, excited about it.
Worship, member
Yeah.
of council,
Yeah, you know.
as a,
You want to be on
as a
TV.
member of the gallery. The insurance industry works in mysterious ways, most of which are unknown to the general public. At this point in time, the municipality has a policy in place, which does not expire until next March.
Right.
You have a broker of record. I would suggest that members of council, based on what I've heard, have an information session with the existing broker of record to explain how the process works. I think if you understand how the process works in the selection of companies and the involvement of the local broker, you might be better prepared to move forward to make your decisions. That's all I'm saying is a overall general background information session perhaps would be benefit in the immediate future to allow you to go forward on your timetable.
and this information center, or session would be their recommendations
No.
ongoing
No.
with an RFP?
None whatsoever.
No.
We will explain to you how the system works. If you want all three brokers that do business in this municipality present, then that's entirely up to you.
Right.
All I'm saying at this point in time, the town of Minto does have a broker of record. That's
Right.
the man who you should go to. If you have a question, he is your broker.
Right.
He's the local man with the answers, and if he doesn't have the answers, then he has, the same if you have an engineering problem with a bridge, you call your engineer. If you have an accounting problem, you call your accountant. If you have a legal problem, you call your lawyer. In this particular case, you have situations that involve insurance coverage. So why not contact the man whose responsibility it is at this particular point in time to look after all of those situations? Ask him some questions, staying totally clear of items that have pertained to anything that involves an RFP. We'll tell you what an RFP is, but in this business, it's not the same thing as putting an RFP out to tender something with a specific set of specifications. This industry works on policy wordings, and some of the overall general markets out there use North American wordings. Some of the markets deal with Lloyd's, which is an international insurance thing, and they may use British wordings. And so a liability policy is not necessarily done on the same piece of paper. After you've had your information session, I think perhaps you might have a better understanding of what is involved in putting together an RFP, and then what you might get when you go beyond that RFP and the response that you get from the companies, because they are not all the same.
Okay.
I'm not sure we have an insurance problem or question here. We're, as a council, deciding whether we want to go to a different carrier or a different local broker or not, that's all. And when we want to get competitive bids on that. So I have no problem if there's, with more information coming to council and to staff. I'm sure we all have lots to learn about the insurance industry, but my suggestion to you is that if one broker is there, that all three ought to be there in the interest of fairness and transparency, because the reason we went to a third party who wasn't interested or tied into any one of the carriers or local brokers is so we had that independence and all three local brokers could bid.
And that's fine. That's not a problem. All I'm saying is that there's some background information that you need, I believe, to prepare you to move forward. To do an RFP, I'm not saying don't do an RFP.
No.
I'm not saying
I'm not either.
don't hire a consultant. I'm not saying don't get don't get risk management. Maybe you should get risk management. I'm saying, I think, is if you have maybe a 30-minute information session on how this industry works, because it's involving companies and brokers is not that simple.
Well, it'd be nice to see their take on the risk assessment too, though, wouldn't it? Or,
And we could ask them how they feel we should move towards an RFP, not necessarily whether we should do it or not, how we would move towards it. And I think that's what I was trying to say. Exactly. Yes.
There's a lot of things that you
Mr.
want to
Brown
do
has said.
which are not wrong.
Right.
It's kind of getting your ducks lined up.
Well, we could schedule it for like a 30-minute session on our August the 27th, if you want to get all three brokers involved.
Sure, I think.
27th?
By Maymare Bridge, we could have all three sit right down there and give you
Yeah.
a presentation on what they feel we don't
And
know.
then if, you feel comfortable after that, we can make a decision. But, like, the one reason we started this process fairly early is we know it takes a long time, Paul, if you decide to go that route, to get everybody going, right?
Your worship, I agree.
So,
it's
we
a
got some
it's a
time,
long
but
process.
we should probably look at it on the 27th. You want to do that? You want to put it to the 27th and get a bit, doesn't hurt to have more information.
Mayor Bridge, if I may, we would invite them to the next available council
Yeah,
meeting where
sure.
all three local
Can make it,
brokers
yeah,
can be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, we have another one, it's an afternoon session.
If there is a motion to that effect, then that would certainly move us forward in that direction.
By Councillor Caldwell, second by Councillor Turton. All in favor? Carried, okay.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
sorry, Paul.
All righty. So where are we now?
Mayor Bridge, we're on to the vehicle use policy. Turns out we have 25 vehicles and 10 specialized vehicles in our fire department. We don't have a comprehensive policy on how these vehicles are to be used by the municipal employees that use them. In the front page of the report, there's a half dozen or dozen bullet points generally outlining the policy, and then there's a detailed policy that is attached to the report. I won't go into it at great lengths. This has been developed in consultation with all our department heads. I just wanted to make clear a few points that are in the policy. First of all, that the vehicles are to be used for business purposes only, that use of a vehicle is a privilege and not a right, and that employees must carry a valid license for the type of vehicle that is used. And of course, if there is any kind of impaired operation or of a vehicle, that would result in discipline and or termination. One of the new things that we're including in this is that our winter patrol people must use a four-wheel drive vehicle. We did have a vehicle mishap last winter. We did purchase a new vehicle that had the four-wheel drive, and we don't want our patrol people using anything but that for their own safety. The other thing is that that's new in the policy is that the person who goes out at 3 or 4 or 2 o'clock in the morning would go out in a town vehicle to this office, so they would have that town vehicle at home at that time. That's another reason for safety. If they need to go through a blocked road or anything like that, then they have a proper vehicle to do that. There's information in there about hands-free technology, using the vehicles out of town if it's cost effective and with supervisor approval. We're all going to be required to do fleet management and replacement plans. And of course, there's a certain obligation on the employee to make sure the vehicle is clean and in good working order, so they're doing proper circle checks, that kind of thing. So our recommendation to you is that you adopt this policy and it become the policies and practice of the town as it pertains to municipal vehicles.
Councillor Elliott and Councillor Paul.
Just quickly, I think it would be a good idea to add to your policy too that we see all licenses and that license be scanned and put on the file. The only reason I'm saying that, in the past we ran into a situation where we had an unlicensed employee. It was with the town of Palmerston, drove our vehicles, and we had no idea. We assumed that there was a license because he originally had a license and then lost his license, and we had no knowledge of that. So if you scan the license, at least we've covered that, and it's on there on a file somewhere that you know that they were licensed. Put us in quite a precarious position.
If I may, Mayor Bridge, through you, the policy requires that the municipality can at any time ask for a driver abstract. I have no problem with it being that we would keep those on record for all drivers.
Updated annually.
Councillor Paul.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. The only issue I've got, I went over that very carefully, the policy. The only issue I've got is I do not want to take away the right of our Public Works Director, Hanson, from directing an employee to take a vehicle out that doesn't necessarily have four-wheel drive. If the situation is such that he has to, that's the only vehicle left, the two-wheel drive vehicle, and it has to be done in an emergent situation, then I think we have to be careful about reducing the right to manage.
If I may, through you, Mayor Bridge, that is a request of the Public Works Director that provision be in there, that they use a four-wheel drive on patrol. The policy does not prevent him from assigning other people to do other work, but we do want all our employees who are doing winter patrol, and there's only one person per night during the winter, that they take that vehicle home, and that the vehicle they take home is a four-wheel drive vehicle. Any other time in emergencies, he can deploy vehicles as he sees fit.
That's not the way I took that wording, though.
This is only for winter patrol, that's all.
No, I understand that.
Did you want to speak to Brad? Brian, you have to come up.
Because I've had
Actually, I just wanted to add, even though it is a 4x4, that they have a plow on it. during the winter months, because I think it could have been a very effective preventative thing if it did have a plow on the front. I know ice, even though it's a 4x4, it's not
It
gonna
wouldn't matter,
stop.
black ice is not
But
gonna
a
make a
plow
difference, but
would
the plow would help. Mary Lou?
Oh, my question was just, in addition to what Councillor Elliott was saying, I know whenever a new employee starts at the place I work, we have to photocopy their driver's license and send it to our insurance company. Is that not standard practice in?
It hasn't been a requirement here, to my knowledge.
Okay.
I can't-
It is probably a good requirement. We just keep it then in their employee file, and we've got it on hand if we're ever asked.
If I may, Mayor Bridge, through you, we haven't had a policy in the past, so
This is
I
why
think
we have
what
it.
I've heard tonight is that you'd like us to amend the policy to make sure we do that, so I'd be quite happy to do that.
That's why we're here tonight, to try and figure it out.
Mayor Bridge, through you, are members of council considered employees, or should there be something in there? Because we've had a couple situations where we've taken the van and went to a conference together, and I'm just wondering.
Yes, I would say they are, through you, Mayor Bridge.
We're
Would
classified
be
as
subject to the
employees?
same policy as.
We're insured in that case, so we shouldn't be
Okay,
given our
good.
license.
I think it's important that
Yeah.
be part of it.
I agree.
I wanna drive a big truck.
Yeah, except when they're big trucks and you have to have the right license.
Right, and that says in
Well,
here,
that's
Yeah, that's it.
the one with
suited for the type of vehicle.
Yeah.
15,000
Okay.
computers in it.
Can I have a recommendation? Moved by Councilor Caldwell, second by Deputy Mayor Fisk, all in favor?
So Mayor Bridge, that would be the policy as amended by the
As
comments
amended,
tonight?
yep.
Thank you. Mayor Bridge, I'm on to industrial land sales. I see Mr. Thalen in the office, in the meeting tonight. There's two rather important land sales that we need to move forward with. The first one in your report is a sale to the NR store as outlined on map 1. My apologies, somehow in the printing of map 1, the star got in the wrong place, but the lot that NR store is buying is at the corner of Hutchison Street and John Street. So if you're looking at that map, it would be right under the word NR store on that drawing, not where the star is.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Somehow
yeah.
that got out of place.
The star's kind of pointing that way, is it?
Yeah. This agreement of purchase and sale was worked on by Belinda Witt Graham and Keith Gray. Before Belinda went on maternity leave, it's a sale of 1 acre at the corner of John and Hutchison Street for a new and innovative technology that we're looking forward to coming to our area. You can see there's a summary of what they're doing. It's rather an interesting, and not being an expert, maybe it's best just to read. They aim to accelerate the commercialization of energy storage technologies through the planning and development of energy storage solution. Is working with Temporal Power to develop a facility to provide regulation services to the Ontario electricity grid, which enables the grid operator to maintain stability of the system by balancing supply and demand over short time intervals every few seconds. Essentially, what they will have on site is the technology to store electricity and put it onto the grid at the time and take it off the grid when it's least expensive and put it into the grid when it's not. So what will be at that location is a building with this technology inside and no regular employees. So the secret with that site will be to enhance how it looks to the community and also encourage NR Store to bring people from around the world to this facility to see this new technology. I did review this description with the principals involved with this company, and they have approved it, and they did state that they are and do intend to bring people from around the world to this facility. So it is leading edge technology. It was very much up to them when this material was brought forward to council in open session. So they are complying with all the requirements of the agreement of purchase and sale, and there is a bylaw in regular session for you to authorize the mayor and I to sign all documents to close that particular transaction. Second is another very important transaction in the Palmerston Industrial Park. This is Tim and Michelle Thalen, and it's for a commercial lot that the town owns for $22,380, roughly $25,000 an acre. This property is not quite on the corner of Minto Road and Wellington Road 1, 2, 3. It's the second lot in. So under this agreement of purchase and sale, there are conditions that require the town to build road and water and sewer into that lot by the end of next year. The intent here being that we begin to do that, obviously during the building season, and we work with Mr. and Mrs. Dalen to make sure that this happens at the same time as they're contemplating work on their property, so we need to work out together on that. They have allowed for an extra year to construct their building, and their building requirement is a 2,000 square foot building, which is slightly different than what our standard agreement of purchase and sale is. Otherwise, they would have all the same covenants in both cases that pertain to our sale of industrial lots if construction doesn't occur within a certain time period. So our recommendation in both cases is that you receive the report and that you consider in regular session the bylaws that would allow the mayor and I to sign all the documents that will close these transactions as soon as possible.
Any mover and second?
I have a question.
No question?
Just with respect to the NR store application, did they anticipate having to expand, or this is just one size and that's going to be it? Because there's really no place to expand there.
They haven't talked about that. They would be covering about 15% of the lot, so our zoning would allow them to go bigger than that if they needed to, but the site plan will come back to council in both cases for you to review and approve, so we'll get a better idea on just what would be going on the property and how much would be covered.
Okay, thank you.
Mary?
Just once again, in regards to the NR store, I noticed that you do have, there's no environmental impact beyond the construction of the building, no chemicals, emissions, or significant noise. But are they producing power there, or no?
Well, they're storing it.
They're storing it. So there's no safety concerns or anything along those lines?
None that, if I may, through you, Mayor Bridge, none that we would be involved with, but there would be certain standards, obviously, they'd have to abide by. They need a building permit as well, and I know they've been in touch with Westario about how they connect to the grid and how that all works.
Do you know, does the Ministry of Environment get involved with something like this, or?
Only if there were a noise or other kind of complaint, there will be no noise, I'm told, for this.
Like
so.
electric pollution, they're not concerned about that type of an issue?
Again, they talked to Westario about the connection to their grid, so those would be issues I would assume. I'm not aware of any of those, and we're getting well beyond my expertise.
From what I gather, the flywheels that are in a vacuum, and they're buried 15 feet into the in cement, so there won't be a noise factor, and there won't be, like, I guess they somehow broke through they're into the dirt, right? From what I gather, there shouldn't be any, but again, they have to bring back all that to us and site and stuff. But
Mayor Bridge, if I may help with that, also there's an engineering firm that's been in touch with our Public Works, the director, our chief building official, and our fire chief, both.
Right.
All three have met with them, and they will dealing with whatever role we have in terms of that approval.
from an overall conservation idea, this works. One of the biggest problems we have with our electrical supply is over grid capacity, which then we give it away.
Yep.
So if this works and they can do this in a lot of places, by all means, this will be a real savings for the province of Ontario, and good news, entrepreneurs, they come up with stuff, right? I like it.
Mayor Bridge, this is proven technology. I've done a little bit of research, and it's pretty well proven.
Yep.
And so I think it's great coming to this area and all the things that we've said.
Yep, super. Okay. Did I have a mover and a seconder? Councilor Turton, Deputy Mayor Fisk, all in favor? Carried. Okay.
Mayor Bridge, last but not least, I have a very brief presentation on the Town of Minto Strategic Plan. I won't, thank you. When we do get the plan up there, it won't be the lengthy one that you've seen before from our staff and myself, so we'll try and keep it short and sweet. Okay. So this